Ohayou gozaimasu. Genki desu ka?
Good morning. How is everybody?
Thank you very much to Maury and for British Council for inviting me here to share Playable City with you. Could I have my slides up, please? Thanks. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Playable City, what it is, what some of the thinking behind it was. I'm going to share with you some examples of play from around the world, and I'm going to talk specifically about the Bristol context and what I think we've learned in the city about how to run these kinds of projects. And then I'm going to introduce you to some of our Playable City award winners, and later on we're going to share with you what we've done here in Tokyo. So to start with, perhaps we'll wind back to some of the kind of smart cities thinking that originally inspired us.
Benaderen die brandsteen Gilpakkie zone te skerp. Uw aandag alsjeblieft. Welcome to Johannesburg International Airport. Please approach the road to create your pickup zone.
When I say inspired us, what I kind of mean is appalled us, because there's many things in Microsoft's view of what our future cities that look like that feel appealing. Everything looks very easy. There's beautiful music that follows you wherever you go in the city. But kind of what it's missing is the kind of grit of a city, the surprise of a city. And actually what it's really missing is warmth and people and humanity. So we wanted to create something in the city which brought people together, which gave surprising interventions to ask them to talk to each other, to connect to each other in new ways. So Playable City, we say, is a framework to think differently about the city. So we work in public spaces. We use the technology of smart cities to connect people, to bring people into that discussion about how their future cities might want to work, to trigger purposeful conversations. So that we don't, this is actually a cocktail bar in Bristol, even though it looks like a kind of horrible alley. But what we don't want is that these spaces, these places of serendipity to be wiped out of how we think about our cities. A city is more than a space in place. It is a drama in time. That's a quote from Patrick Geddes in 1915. And I love this idea of cities as theatre. And if the city is like a drama, as well as actors on the stage, we need stage managers, we need people to brush up, but we also need an audience to engage with the vision and to make the meaning. So we're not trying to pretend that we invented play in the city. I think Playable City perhaps codifies and brings together a movement that is already happening all over the world. This is the Utrecht Travel Accelerator, or SLIDE, as it's more commonly known. And the thing about the SLIDE in Utrecht was actually the people hated it. They were trying to make people make their travel to work more fun, but actually, and apologies to our American friends here, they said they didn't want to get fat like Americans, so they didn't use it and they took the stairs. This, again, seeks to make the walk to work more exciting by introducing a trampoline. And in Bogota, the mayor of Bogota decided that people were more likely to obey traffic rules and to behave better to their fellow citizens if they were made fun of rather than if they were fined. So he sent out these teams of clowns onto the streets to ridicule the drivers. And he actually gave the citizens of Bogota red and green cards so that if somebody was doing something that you didn't like, you could red card them. Bus stops seem to feature pretty heavily in playful interventions in public spaces. And of course, in Tokyo, as Saito-san has said, you have lots of playful interventions of your own. And we had Fujiko Nakaya, an amazing Japanese artist, come to Bristol last year to install the rather wonderful fog bridge. This is a kind of classic play in the city film now, but the Fun Theory website is full of lots of interventions around how you can use play to create impact in a city. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Watershed and where this came from. Watershed is a media arts centre in the city of Bristol. We were started in 1986 with a view of the media and communications industries coming together. Not so much in 1986, so we're a cinema, we're a research studio, we're a cafe bar, so we are our own social and public space, and a conference centre. And I guess the thing that really drives us is similar to what Nicholas Negroponte was saying yesterday about difference. We're really inspired by John C.D. Brown's work from Harvard around creation nets. And he talks about to deliver real innovation, and especially in times of massive change, and I think we would all agree that we are living in times of massive change, you need to work with people who are not like you. You need to find people of a different culture, of a different background, of a different discipline. And only the coming together of real difference will deliver kind of step change innovation. So we take this literally, and we have a research lab where we bring together artists, technologists, creatives, magicians, academics, anyone we can find. And we invite them to share their space with us. And we ask only two things, that they're generous and that they're interruptible. And by this kind of pollination of ideas, we create projects like Playable City. But we're also very much in and of our city. So I thought I would share a little bit about the kind of characteristics of Bristol. And excuse the fact there's loads of writing on this slide. It's just some background context. Bristol is a pretty small city. It's not London, and that's kind of what makes it great. We can take risks, we can play, we can do things that maybe London can't. However, Bristol is the largest cluster of silicon companies outside of Silicon Valley. So we have a huge technology industry. We have research labs, as you'll see, from people like Hewlett-Packard, from Toshiba. There are growing tech companies moving in all the time. We also, because we're the home of the BBC Natural History Unit, and a massive percentage of the BBC, of the world's natural history programming is still made in Bristol, have a thriving creative industries. We also have Aardman Animation, which I'm sure many of you will know from Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit. And these two kind of big linchpin creative companies have, of course, spun out many interesting startups, many smaller companies looking to do things differently. And so this ecology of creativity and technology, and the fact that physically we're kind of a small place and you can walk really quickly to find the person that you want to work with, means that we have a pretty high GDP, and that creative industries, and crucially art, is a really, really important bit of that economic growth. We're voted by reports which may or may not be true as second only to London in terms of numbers of people working in the digital economy. But I guess the thing that makes me proud, and I think the clue to some of the stuff that we do, is this notion that we're buzzy and that we're friendly. I really like this notion of the FDI intelligence, business friendliness. I don't think they actually meant that you can go and have a pint with somebody from Hewlett-Packard quite easily, but actually that's what I take it as. And the other thing that I feel is really special about Bristol is its unorthodox nature. Like Tokyo, we've had many people come in to do placemaking strategies, to create logos and strap lines for the city. And actually, most of them gave up and went away, because one of the things about our city is its kind of refusal to define itself in other people's terms. And I guess Banksy, the street artist who was born in Bristol, is a very good example of that kind of unorthodox art that runs through our blood. So, this amazingly fertile space of creatives and technology and the work that Watershed has done since 1982 means that projects have sprung up which use public spaces as their canvas, as their stage. Projects like 2.8 Hours Later, which is a citywide zombie chase game, which kind of uses the city like the best set you could ever have. If you're an artist and you want to create something spectacular and of scale, it's probably best to do it in the city rather than trying to build something. Circumstances, Speaker Symphony, invites audience members to carry a small GPS-enabled speaker. You essentially carry the line in an orchestra, and as you walk together, you become the city symphony, and you start to notice the beauty and the cinema of the city in a really new way. Luke Jerram's Sky Orchestra, a brilliant project, but not one I would like to do again, because working with hot air balloons is very stressful. But this project sought to play a lullaby by installing speakers around the baskets of the balloons. So at night, as people started to drift off to sleep, their dreams might be enhanced by this beautiful surround sound melody. And Luke Jerram was also the originator of Park and Slide, which I believe has been ripped off pretty well everywhere in the world, including Tokyo.
My name is Luke Jerram, and I'm the artist behind Park and Slide.
Now, I've known Luke for a long time, and I've always...
Thousands of people came into the centre of Bristol to try and win a lucky golden ticket to slide down the centre of our main street, often dressed up. It was a really special day. This project also was only 2 weeks ago, and again, like a Playable City project, seeks to use the infrastructure of the city to reappropriate it, to create art and play. I was looking from the balcony of the outside of this tower and counting cranes this morning because this project has turned me into a kind of crane geek. But I think it will be brilliant here. And one thing that I think this project underlines is the kind of sense of permission that we've managed to create in the city. Permission to dream big, to say, why can't I use the city cranes to make a dance and a piece of music? I recently had Seb Chan, who was the digital director of the Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York, do a talk for us. And he said the most important thing in projects like this is to find consent, not consensus. And I think that's a thing we might want to come back to, and how, as cities, we enable these kinds of interventions to flourish. So Playable City. We started Playable City in 2007, I think, with Minami Uesa from British Council. And we thought we were just running a week-long lab for artists from Bristol and from Asia to meet each other and to collaborate. But actually, quickly, the project gained momentum, and we announced an international award for Playable City projects. The first project, as Saito-san said, was Hello Lamppost. This was a project that enabled you to SMS objects in the city to wake them up. People SMS'd every kind of object in the city. They had conversations with lampposts about the lighting. They had conversations with bus stops about their travels to work. What we created, kind of unknowingly, was a city analytics system where we could gauge the mood, the emotion, and the feelings of the citizens of Bristol through a playful SMS. Perhaps they wouldn't tell the council that they wanted the buses fixing, but they might tell the bus stop. So we have now run Hello Lamppost, which is a project by Pan Studio. We're the producers with the artists of Pan Studio in Austin, in America. It's currently running in Singapore. We've run it in Russia, and obviously here for Roppongi Art Nights. And what we've also started to create is, I guess, a database of answers. We know what the difference between people in Tokyo and Austin, Texas are in terms of how they feel about democracy, in terms of what they're dreaming about, in terms of how they get to work, which again is a kind of another unexpected outcome of this project. The second Playable City Award was won by some artists called Matthew Rosier and Jonathan Chompko. Jonathan is an American artist and Matthew is from Britain, but they were both actually studying at Fabrica in Italy when they created this project. And it seeks to hack 8 perfectly ordinary looking lampposts. And yes, I do know that we have a bit of an obsession with lampposts. It hacks 8 ordinary looking lampposts to capture your shadow as you walk underneath them and to play it back. So you essentially dance with your shadow. One of the most important rules of Playable City projects is that they're not for hipsters. There's a lot of work in cities which are designed for people with super amazing smartphones who like making a fool out of themselves in public. And we do those kinds of projects. But for Playable City, it's important that we reach all citizens and that we engage all citizens in these conversations about cities. So to play with the Playable City project, you don't need a smartphone. You don't need to download an app and find a Wi-Fi hotspot and pair your phone with a lamppost, because every time you do one of those things, you higher the barrier to participation. So shadowing is just an ordinary lamppost that's had some magic sprinkled into it. And one of the things that made me most proud about the project was in one of the maybe more difficult neighborhoods of the city that we took it to. Somebody came and said to us that it used to be an area for mugging, and now people come here to play. This is the GIFs that we pick up from the lampposts, the kind of recordings of people's shadows. These are the recordings of people's shadows that are safe to show at a conference, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, people do some pretty odd things with their shadows. We also now have a database of shadows, which we don't really know what to do with. Some of the meaning behind shadowing is asking people to think about the data traces that they leave in the city, the surveillance that is everywhere in UK cities that perhaps they're not aware of, and the people that they meet, that their technology trails kind of interact with on a daily basis. So although we have these beautiful GIF shadows, which I'm sharing with you, we haven't published them online because we can't quite work out what the intellectual property of somebody's shadow is. So why do all this stuff? What does it mean? Because these projects are small projects. They can't solve the problems of a city. They can't solve traffic. We can't completely stop crime, any of those things. But what we can do is start a conversation, and from conversation, from different people talking to each other, we can make change. This project is called Nuage Vert, and it happened in Helsinki. And the projection that you see on the plume of smoke is a changing data visualization of how much energy was consumed in the city that day. This ambient, non-judgmental, non-hectoring environmental message changed. The artists are called He projects, and it changed how people used energy in the city. And also, maybe more importantly, it changed how the city saw itself. It had a different kind of story to tell when it went to all the smart city and placemaking conferences all around the world. This project happened in the UK this year, and it's by a really amazing public arts agency called Situations. And they basically buried gold on a beach and then just got people to dig it up. And what I just think is so beautiful about this project is that I've talked to people I never would have talked to normally. It's about making connections. So finally, this year, the winner of our Playable City Awards was Lax, with the rather amazing Urbanimals. So I'm going to play the trailer for you, so you can get a very quick overview of the project. And then Anya is going to take the stage after me to tell you more about the project. Thank you.